In my past life, I gave up the hands that once saved lives. I traded them for Elena's success and a marriage that looked flawless to everyone else. Decades later, in the hospital's intensive care unit, Elena lay dying. "Daniel." I answered softly, "I'm here." Her cloudy eyes stared at the ceiling as if seeing through the walls into a distant past. "If you hadn't saved me back then, how wonderful that would have been." My whole body shook. I thought she regretted my ruined hands, that she mourned my sacrifice even in her final moments. But I was wrong. Her last thought wasn't sorrow for what I gave up. It was deep, piercing regret she had carried her entire life. Violent shaking and thunderous noise jolted me awake. Instead of a sterile hospital room, I saw a gray, dust-filled sky and swirling dirt clouds. Shrill cries for help filled my ears, accompanied by the heavy thuds of collapsing buildings. I froze, staring at my hands. They were young, strong, but covered in mud. Soldiers in green uniforms and medical staff in white coats ran past me. This was the earthquake site, the disaster that carved itself deep into my bones, the event that changed my entire life. I was back, reborn decades earlier, back to the day Elena was buried beneath rubble, the day I charged in without hesitation. The shock overwhelmed my mind, but my body reacted faster than thought. My gaze locked onto the familiar ruins ahead. The military district command post now reduced to shattered debris. Elena was beneath it. Memories from my past life surged like a tide. Back then, I saved Elena at the cost of my hands that would never again hold acupuncture needles. That sacrifice bound us together for decades. She became accomplished, powerful, honored by all. I faded into the background, willingly playing the supporting role. She was the esteemed military district general. I was the man others envied, the general's husband. But even I had regrets. Watching my former colleagues shine brightly while I lived an ordinary, muted life, I had been deeply envious. I too had wanted to blaze with brilliance. Now, given a second chance, what should I choose? Thinking of Elena's voice on her deathbed, still heartbroken over my ruined hands, I made my decision without hesitation and rushed forward. Though my previous life held regrets, I never once felt remorse. In this life, I will still choose the same path. I will save her no matter what. I will save her again. I knelt on the rubble, digging with my bare hands, ignoring everything else. My nails split open, blood mixing with dust and grit. "Elena, hold on." My hoarse voice cracked as I worked faster and faster, as if pain no longer existed. From beneath the ruins came a faint response, filled with pain yet laced with an unfamiliar urgency. "Daniel, is that you? Go, get away." My hand stopped midair. I thought I had misheard. She wanted me to leave. In my previous life, I never heard her say anything like this. "It's dangerous here. There will be aftershocks. Leave now." Elena's voice grew louder, holding a sharp anger I had never heard from her, and something else, fear. I clenched my teeth and dug even faster as I replied, "No. I have to get you out. I don't want you to save me. Go." My heart tightened painfully. She was so determined, so desperate to stop me from ruining my hands. I wanted to tell her that I was back, that this time I would not repeat the mistakes of the past, that I wouldn't let her carry any burden for the rest of her life. I dug with even more frenzy. "Daniel, I'm begging you, don't save me, please." My hands froze. I lifted my head, and through a gap between the bricks, my gaze met Elena's. Those once bright, sharp eyes were now bloodshot, filled with agony, with pleading, and even a trace of despair. "I don't want to live like that for a lifetime again." She was gasping, her voice weakening, yet every word crashed into my chest like a hammer. Live like that again? Like what? The decades she spent with me. A cold chill crept up my spine. And in that instant, I understood. Elena had been reborn too. And she was in such torment that she'd rather die here than spend another lifetime with me. Elena's words sent a violent shock through my mind. I knelt there stupidly, unable to move my hands at all. Over here, someone's still alive down here. Another medical rescue team arrived. At the same moment the shout rang out, Elena, beneath the rubble, her eyes filled with despair and darkness, suddenly burst with startling brilliance. Using every bit of her remaining strength, she called toward the rescue team. "Dr. Marcus, Marcus, I'm here." My head turned mechanically toward the voice. I saw a tall, straight-backed, handsome doctor in a white coat running toward us at full speed. And the way Elena looked at Marcus made my heart clench painfully. It was the look of someone reunited with something precious, long lost, finally found. Marcus sprinted over, not sparing me even a glance. "Commander Liu, hold on. We're getting you out right now." I watched as the team quickly cleared the debris, revealing Elena's upper body. And I watched the light in her eyes, light that no longer had room for anyone but him. My chest tightened unbearably. Just then, another violent aftershock struck. The ground trembled and rubble began raining from above. "Watch out," Marcus shouted, moving to shield Elena. But at that same moment, though her lower body was still trapped beneath a heavy concrete slab, Elena suddenly thrust her arm upward, protecting the exact space where debris was most likely to fall on Marcus's head. A fist-sized rock slammed into her arm with a heavy thud. She groaned, frowning in pain, yet she maintained a protective posture without a second of hesitation. I stared, stunned. In my previous life, in almost this exact spot, a rock of the same size had fallen toward me as I dug frantically to save her. Back then, she only watched in anxious panic, shouting my name, urging me to be careful. But she didn't reach out like this. So this is the truth. The body's instinctive reaction never lies. "Watch out," I shouted. And then I saw it. The massive load-bearing slab, the one that in my memory eventually crushed my hands beyond repair, loosened from the continuous shaking and rolled straight toward where Marcus was standing. "Marcus," Elena screamed, truly screamed. With total disregard for the risk to her already trapped lower body, her frail frame erupted with terrifying strength as she forced herself sideways, using her own back to shield Marcus, fitting him tightly into a narrow pocket of safety created by the rubble. The giant slab scraped past her spine and crashed to the ground with a thunderous impact, dust engulfing them both. Elena let out a cry of agony. Her face drained of all color, sweat pouring down like rain. She was clearly gravely injured. Yet this woman, this fragile woman, shielded that man with her whole body. And she was smiling. A soft, warm, contented smile. I stood there, watching that blinding scene through the swirling dust. My eyes burned uncontrollably, my chest clenched so hard I could barely breathe. So this is how it truly was. Elena's final regret in her last life wasn't sorrow over my lost career. It was that my sacrifice became the price she had to pay, a debt that forced her into marrying me, a barrier she could never cross to reach Marcus. The person she wanted to spend her life with was never me. She married me only because I ruined my hand saving her. A sharp pain tore through my heart. As the truth cracked open before me, I realized my entire previous life had been nothing but a cruel joke. What I thought was decades of mutual devotion, a lifetime of happiness, was merely a shackle Elena couldn't break free from, her lifelong regret. Silently, I took a step back. Then another. Leaving the space entirely to Marcus. Let go, I thought. In this life, she will chase her light, and I will pursue my own dream. I no longer looked toward Elena. Instead, I turned away, firmly, decisively, and ran toward the areas where others still needed help. Relying on the solid medical knowledge I had accumulated in my previous life and with the young, healthy, agile hands I possessed in this one, I picked up a set of acupuncture needles that felt both familiar and unfamiliar. Very soon, shock and gratitude replaced the doubt in everyone's eyes. As they watched me, this seemingly gentle, unassuming young man, my fingertips trembling lightly as the needles danced accurately, steadily, swiftly, piercing into the acupoints. The wounds that had been bleeding uncontrollably began to clot. The patients whose bodies had been convulsing in agony gradually calmed down. Even those whose breathing had been faint and erratic slowly found a steady rhythm under my hands. All skepticism melted into genuine respect. "Young man, thank you so much. Just now, the pain in my leg nearly made me want to die, but the moment your needle went in, heavens, it's like a miracle. Dr. Chen, my child's fever dropped. He's finally sleeping soundly." I worked non-stop, sweat soaking through my back, dust coating my face, but my eyes grew brighter and brighter. That long-lost feeling, the fullness that came from saving lives with my own skills, from realizing my own worth, it washed away much of the pain Elena had caused me. In my previous life, I could only look up at my colleagues, all of them achieving glory, basking in honor. I too had once been someone others looked up to. Yet in the end, I became nothing more than the general's husband in people's eyes, a man mocked for living off a woman. In this life, with these hands restored to me, I will carve out a brilliance of my own and build a sky strong enough to shelter the people who truly belong to me. A new round of emergency rescue finally came to an end. I finally had a moment to rest. Even after everything, even knowing she no longer wanted my help, decades of companionship in my past life made it impossible for me to simply ignore Elena. I knew very clearly that her injuries were severe, especially her spine and internal organs, which had likely suffered hidden damage when she shielded Marcus from that massive falling slab. If not treated and nourished properly, the aftereffects could be devastating and might even affect her future career. In my previous life, seeing how badly she was hurt, I searched everywhere for medicinal herbs, enduring searing pain in my ruined hands, and stayed up several nights brewing the Chen family's ancestral bone-healing ointment to treat her. Back then, Elena saw my bandaged hands and couldn't help scolding me. "Daniel Chen, are you insane? Do you not want your hands anymore? In this life, my hands are unharmed, making the process far easier." By the time I found Elena's temporary medical tent, it was already dusk. A kerosene lamp glowed inside, its dim yellow light leaking through the fabric. I could faintly hear quiet conversation. "Don't keep calling me Commander Liu. It sounds too distant. If it hadn't been for you today, I might have died there." Elena's voice was gentle, warm, completely different from the agitation she showed when she rejected me earlier. Marcus's voice was steady and calm. "Please don't say that. Saving lives is my duty. But you, how dangerous it was. How did you dare throw yourself in front of that falling stone?" Elena's voice softened further, tinged with warmth. "In that moment, I didn't think at all. I just saw the rock falling toward you and my mind went blank. It was instinct. Thinking back, I'm just glad I blocked it. You're a woman, I'm a man. This is something men are supposed to do. You can't keep disregarding yourself like that. Seeing you hurt like this, If I could go back, I would still do the same." Elena's voice came again. If time rewound, she would still protect him. So in my previous life, had I not rushed ahead of Marcus, this very scene would have happened anyway. How ridiculous that I once believed Elena loved me, that she pitied my ruined hands, that she carried that pain until her dying breath. Ridiculous that after she died, I followed her without hesitation. I took a deep breath, swallowing the bitterness in my chest, and finally lifted the tent flap. The conversation inside stopped abruptly. Elena was leaning against a simple cot. Marcus sat beside her, adjusting her bandages. Both turned to look at me. The soft warmth on Elena's face, the warmth she showed only to Marcus, vanished instantly, replaced by polite distance so quickly it chilled me. Marcus frowned lightly, a hint of scrutiny and wariness flickering in his eyes. I tried to keep my voice calm. "Elena, this is my family's ancestral ointment. It works wonders for bone mending and muscle regeneration. Keep it and use it." I extended the small ceramic jar toward her. My fingernails, still damaged from the day's digging, pressed slightly against the jar as I held it out. Elena's eyes lingered on the jar for less than a heartbeat before she looked away. Her voice was indifferent. "Thank you for your good intentions, Comrade Daniel, but it won't be necessary. Dr. Marcus will be in charge of my treatment. I trust him." My hand froze in midair. Comrade Daniel. After decades of living side by side, reborn anew, she now called me comrade, as if we were strangers. With my hand already stretched out, withdrawing it felt humiliating, but continuing to offer it felt even worse. Elena seemed completely unaware of my discomfort. She didn't even look at me. "These things must be valuable. You should give them to someone who needs them more, comrade. Comrade Daniel. Someone who needs it more, comrade." Each phrase drew a precise, merciless line between us, our decades of past affection on one side and the cold distance of this life on the other. I felt my cheeks heat uncontrollably. Shame, disappointment, the sting of having my kindness rejected, and a cold anger at how desperately she wanted to distance herself from me, all flooding my chest. I could even feel Marcus's gaze upon me, tinged with pity or perhaps the quiet confidence of a victor. Silently, I withdrew my hand, gripping the cool jar tight. "Sorry for disturbing you," I murmured, turned around, and walked away quickly, almost fleeing from that suffocating space. From inside the tent, I faintly heard Marcus's steady voice. He meant well. Treating him like that, it was too hurtful. And Elena's cheerful, unmistakably relieved response. Precisely because he meant well, I can't accept it. I don't want him to misunderstand. It would cause unnecessary trouble. I stopped listening. So in this new life, I had become her trouble. But the disaster zone was riddled with aftershocks. Shrill whistles and urgent shouts kept calling my name, giving me no time to lick my wounds. I had just fastened my medical kit when a panicked cry came from afar. Dr. Chen, there's a child here, an aortic rupture." Coming, I wiped the dust from my face and sprinted toward the new rescue point without hesitation. Not long after I left, Elena, whose injuries were far more serious than she had admitted, was urgently transferred to the military district hospital, which had better equipment and specialists. Lou, her father, feared his only daughter would suffer permanent damage and pulled every possible connection to get her airlifted out early. At her request, Marcus received special approval to accompany her. When the helicopter carrying Elena and Marcus lifted off, I was kneeling under a collapsed beam, carefully treating a soldier whose leg had been impaled by a steel bar. Sweat slid down my temples, mixing with blood and dust, but I didn't notice. "Doctor, I'm fine. Go save the others first." The female soldier's voice trembled yet remained firm. Without even lifting my head, I replied, "There are other doctors elsewhere." "My leg, is it ruined?" she asked again, fear finally breaking through her composure. I swiftly inserted a needle to stop the bleeding and said, "Don't be afraid. Trust me. Your leg can be saved. These hands, since I've gotten them back in this life, I'm going to make them fulfill their greatest purpose." With every day of relentless work and every heartfelt, "Thank you, Dr. Chen," the part of my heart that ached because of Elena was filled bit by bit, expanding, hardening, growing stronger. There were still too many people who needed saving. This was the place where I truly belonged. The old commander happened to see me continuing to treat patients with blood-soaked hands and couldn't help but praise, "Daniel Chen, remarkable." I simply smiled and nodded. I would mend every regret from my last life. With the united efforts of the military and civilians, the disaster was finally brought under control. Once the situation stabilized, the rescue team returned in triumph. Because of my outstanding performance, I received an official commendation from the military district. Comrade Daniel has disregarded personal danger, devoted himself to saving lives, and demonstrated the noble character of a revolutionary military doctor. The leader's voice echoed across the square. Thunderous applause erupted from below the stage. Wearing the ceremonial sash, medal in hand, I felt pride swelling in my chest, bright and blazing. In my past life, I could only look up at the glory of others. But in this one, that glory finally fell upon me. After returning to the military district hospital, I would occasionally overhear the nurses talking about Elena. What they spoke of was always the same, her sudden closeness with Marcus. Whenever they noticed me walk by, they would immediately stop talking. I pretended not to know. In my previous life, even though I did everything I could, Elena still ended up with aftereffects. Her lower back would ache on rainy days. In this life, she had further aggravated her injuries by shielding Marcus from that falling slab. Elena was an exceptional female officer. In my past life, it took her 20 years to rise to the position of general. I knew how effective the Chen family's ancestral ointment was. It would help her tremendously. And with my unharmed hands in this life, it wasn't impossible to help her heal completely with no lasting problems. Thinking of this, I went to Elena's ward. Just as I raised my hand to knock, the voices inside made me freeze. I heard Daniel earned great merit in the disaster zone and received a commendation. Marcus's voice carried a faint frustration he couldn't hide. If I had come back a few days later, maybe. "Don't think too much," Elena's voice was warm and firm. "Your ability doesn't need a medal to prove it. Believe me, in the future, I'll make sure you stand somewhere higher to receive the glory that truly belongs to you." My fingers curled slightly. They had already confirmed their relationship this quickly. Marcus sounded a little unconvinced. But that was a military district commendation. Elena chuckled softly. You want honor? Once I recover, we'll head to the training grounds. I'll fight for it with my own hands. The man I, Elena, acknowledge must stand on the highest podium so everyone can see him. I'm the man. You shouldn't fight my battles for me. Marcus's voice grew quieter, but the joy in it was unmistakable. When I recover, marry me, okay? I realized I had come at the worst possible moment. Slowly lowering my hand, I turned to leave. Who's at the door? Elena's alert voice halted my steps. I had no choice but to turn back and push open the door. It's me, Daniel. The two people inside reacted differently. A brief stiffness flickered across Marcus's face before he regained composure. Elena, however, frowned slightly. Her tone was distant. Comrade Daniel, what is it? It used to be just Daniel. Now it was always, Comrade Daniel. I still wasn't used to it. I stated my purpose directly. I came to check on your injuries. This time it's not like before, especially the damage to your spine and internal organs. If not treated properly, it's easy to leave long-term issues. In the future. Thank you for your concern, Elena cut me off, her tone distant. My injuries are healing well. Marcus's medical skills are excellent. I trust him. I persisted. Elena, I'm not questioning Dr. Marcus's ability. It's just that the medical techniques passed down in my family specialize in these kinds of internal trauma. If you let me examine, maybe I can. Comrade Daniel, Elena interrupted again, her brows knitting tighter. I believe I made myself very clear before. I trust Marcus. Marcus and I will be getting engaged soon. For the sake of propriety, please keep your distance. I don't want my fiancé to misunderstand and cause unnecessary trouble. I stared at her, barely believing she could say something like that. We grew up in the same military compound. Even if not lovers, we had decades of childhood friendship. Was she really going to sever that completely? Elena continued calmly and coldly. I know my own body. I trust the man who will be my husband. If anything does happen in the future, I will take responsibility for the consequences myself. Her future husband. She would take responsibility herself. But I feared what she could not take. I tried again, still holding onto the last bit of hope. Elena, I only came because our families have been close for generations and we grew up together. There's nothing more to it. You know my family's medical skills, they're especially effective with trauma. No need for unnecessary gestures, Elena's tone was growing impatient. I said it already, I know my own condition. We did grow up together, and I always saw you as an older brother, but you're not actually my brother. If Comrade Daniel has free time, please focus on others who need you. I have Marcus here. Elena, I'm only trying to make sure you don't have lasting injuries. You don't need to reject me so anxiously. Comrade Daniel, she frowned deeply. Whether I have aftereffects or not has nothing to do with you. You should focus on other patients. Please leave. I need to rest. A flush of humiliation burned across my face. All I wanted was to keep her from suffering permanent damage. Yet she was so desperate to draw a boundary, all to put Marcus at ease. I looked at Elena's firm expression. Then at Marcus, silent beside her. In the end, every word I wanted to say dissolved into a faint, bitter curve of my lips. I turned and left, quietly closing the door behind me. At the corner of the corridor, I faintly heard Marcus's voice, tinged with worry. Wasn't that too harsh? The entire military district is saying he likes you. Elena's answer was cold, almost merciless. If he likes me, does that mean I have to like him? You know I only like you. I'm doing this so he doesn't develop any unrealistic hopes and so he won't upset you. I leaned against the cold wall, closed my eyes, and took a deep breath. 2 lifetimes of emotion still made my chest ache faintly. If he likes me, does that mean I must like him? Unrealistic hopes. So he won't upset you. Fine. This puts an end to everything I once held in my heart. From now on, we will simply be strangers. I never denied that Elena was an exceptional woman. She possessed a determination no weaker than any man's yet also had the delicate sensitivity of a woman. In my previous life, even though Elena loved Marcus, once she married me, she locked those feelings away completely and lived her entire life by my side. So much so that until her death, I never realized another man existed in her heart. So in this life, her refusal was clean and absolute. She feared I would cling to her and she wanted to give Marcus complete security. That I could understand. In my mind, everything became clear. No one wronged anyone in our past life. It was simply a matter of choices. And in this life, since Elena had made her choice, I would only respect it. Quietly, I went to find Marcus and handed him the ointment I had prepared. Dr. Marcus, this is my family's ancestral ointment. It will help with Elena's injuries. She doesn't want to accept my goodwill, but I know you care about her condition, so. Before I could finish, Marcus cut me off sharply. Dr. Chen, I will take care of Elena's health. There's no need for you to worry about her. I hope you keep your distance in the future and stop being so concerned about her. Do you know that sometimes your concern becomes a burden to others? His words stung, but I still replied calmly. I'm speaking purely from a doctor's duty. I can't bear to see a talented officer risk her future. That's enough, a faint mocking curve appeared on Marcus's lips. Duty. There are so many injured people in this hospital. Why don't you show the same duty to them? Daniel, we're both adults here. Let's not pretend. Elena is with me now. I hope you can keep your distance so no one starts gossiping, saying that I, Marcus, stole the sweetheart of young Master Chen. You come from a well-off family, so maybe you don't care about reputation. But I was raised to never interfere in someone else's relationship. Keep your ointment for someone who actually needs it. Elena has me. Looking at Marcus's handsome yet wary face, I suddenly felt very tired. Still, I forcibly pushed the ointment into his hands. Don't worry. I'm not interested in Elena. I truly mean well. If you really care for her, then at least try the ointment. Don't let her carry regrets. After saying that, I didn't bother to see his reaction. I turned and walked away. Behind me, Marcus glanced at the ointment in his hand, let out a cold snort, and casually tossed it into the trash. After giving away the ointment, every lingering worry in my heart finally settled. With the weekend off, I could at last spare time to return to the compound and visit my parents. But before I even reached my doorstep, a warm, familiar voice called out. Daniel, finally I caught you. Mrs. Liu came hurrying over with a basket of groceries. Without giving me a chance to respond, she grabbed my arm and looked me up and down. Look at those dark circles. You must be exhausted at the hospital. You've lost weight. You're coming to our house for dinner tonight. Auntie made chicken soup. You need a proper meal. In the past, such affection would have filled me with warmth. But now it only made me uncomfortable. I forced a small smile. Auntie Liu, really, there's no need. Mrs. Liu immediately cut me off with a playful scold. What, no need? Don't be so polite with Auntie. I watched you grow up. Since when did you start acting like a stranger with me? Just as I struggled to find a way to decline, a familiar voice sounded from behind. Mom. My body stiffened. Slowly, I turned around. Not far away, Elena stood leaning on a crutch. Marcus was carefully supporting her arm. The moment our gazes met, the air froze. Mrs. Liu's smile stiffened instantly, her expression turning dark as she eyed Marcus with displeasure. Elena hobbled over, her face calm. Her gaze brushed past me without a pause or flicker, landing directly on her mother. Mom, this is Marcus, my partner. She gently pulled Marcus's hand closer. Marcus, this is my mother. Marcus stepped forward quickly and said with a hint of nervousness, Auntie, hello. Mrs. Liu's expression shifted repeatedly. She looked at Elena, then at Marcus, and finally at me, her hand instinctively tightening around my sleeve. Elena noticed and frowned. Mom, Comrade Daniel has things to do. Don't keep him. Besides, it's my first time bringing my boyfriend home. It's inappropriate to have an outsider present. Mrs. Liu stiffened, humiliated and furious. Even if her daughter had a boyfriend now, how could she treat me, someone who grew up with her, like a stranger? Besides, I was the son-in-law she had already acknowledged in her heart. Elena, what are you saying? What outsider? Daniel is not an outsider in this house. And what's with this, Comrade Daniel? Weren't you always calling him just Daniel? What happened between you two? And he? Before Mrs. Lou could finish, I quickly stepped in, gently pulling my sleeve free. Auntie Lou, I haven't seen my parents in a long time. I'll head back. Daniel, wait. Mrs. Lou reached out, wanting to say more. But I had already turned around and walked away, almost fleeing toward my own yard. Behind me, I faintly caught Mrs. Lou's barely restrained voice of anger. Elena, what is wrong with you? Are you trying to infuriate me? You and Daniel. Mom, I like Marcus. I don't like Daniel. Please don't mention us in the same breath again. You'll make Marcus misunderstand. The iron gate shut behind me, sealing off all the awkwardness. I stood in the familiar courtyard, breathing in the familiar scent of home-cooked food. And then I shouted, Dad, Mom, I'm back. Back from my previous life. Ever since that day, rumors slowly began spreading through the military compound. Did you hear? Elena brought home a boyfriend, but her mom didn't even let the men through the door. I'm telling you, the Chen family's boy is so much better. He grew up with Elena, and he's from a family of medical experts. Mrs. Lou practically raised him like her own son. Exactly. I was there that day. When Mrs. Lou saw that Dr. Marcus, her face turned green. Anyone with eyes knows Daniel liked Elena. Everyone thought they'd end up together, but suddenly this Marcus guy pops up out of nowhere. Inevitably, these words reached my ears. All I could do was act thick-skinned and pretend I didn't hear a thing. It was my own fault anyway. At this stage of my life, I had once loved Elena with all my heart. To make her happy, I would have done anything. Everyone in the compound used to know how I felt about her. But Elena was getting married. And the groom was Marcus. So now, in the eyes of everyone, I naturally became the man who got dumped. Saying I wasn't embarrassed would be a lie, but after living decades in my last life, my face had grown pretty thick. To avoid unnecessary trouble, I tried my best to avoid running into Elena and Marcus. But fate wasn't on my side, and I still ran into them. No, not fate. Marcus was clearly waiting for me. His expression was sour, and his tone was far harsher than before. Daniel, what do you mean by this? You promised me last time you wouldn't bother Elena anymore, so why are you pulling strings behind our backs and getting Elena's mother to oppose us? I frowned. You're mistaken. I've never said anything to Auntie Lou about you two. Marcus let out a cold laugh. Mistaken. The whole compound is talking. They say Mrs. Lou only acknowledges you as her son-in-law. If you didn't say anything behind my back, why would she dislike me so much? If Auntie Lou doesn't like you, that's between you and the Lou family. Somehow that becomes my fault. I almost laughed in disbelief. Dr. Marcus, I'm busy. I don't have time to interfere in your matters. If Auntie Lou doesn't like you, you should reflect on yourself. Don't come running to me. Marcus sneered. Oh, reflect on myself. Then tell me, why is it that every time I visit, Auntie Lou brings you up? About how Daniel has been sensible since childhood, how Daniel's medical skills are excellent. Daniel, if you're going to do something, own it. You pretend to be generous in front of Elena to win her favor, and behind her back, you get her mother to suppress me. What are you trying to achieve? I almost laughed. Auntie Lou didn't say anything wrong. I was sensible since childhood. My medical skills are good. What's wrong with elders praising juniors? You're upset because Auntie Lou complimented me, and that's somehow my fault. Dr. Chen, I don't want to speak harshly, but the truth is, if you hadn't clung to Elena, Auntie Lou wouldn't have misunderstood. If it weren't for you, she wouldn't be so critical of me. I almost laughed outright at this point. Dr. Marcus, I've told you, Elena and I are just comrades. Your relationship with her has nothing to do with me. If you insist on believing I'm manipulating things behind the scenes, I have nothing more to say. I stepped around him, ready to leave. Stop right there, Marcus raised his voice loud enough that passing nurses turned to look. Daniel, remember your place. Elena and I have already applied for marriage registration. She is my soon-to-be wife. From now on, stay away from her and her family. Do not appear in front of them again. I was truly angered now. Dr. Marcus, even if you're Elena's husband, I've lived in this compound for 20 years. So you're telling me I'm not allowed to go near the Liu family anymore? Does that mean I'm also not allowed to return to my own home? And who are you to give me orders? I had been giving way step after step, yet they pushed further and further. Did they really think Daniel Chen had no temper? I turned around to leave but saw Elena standing behind me. Elena looked at me, her gaze icy cold. Comrade Daniel, I was the one in the wrong before. Back when you were following after me, I didn't clearly reject you. I'm sorry for causing that misunderstanding. Now that Marcus and I are about to get married, please give him the respect he deserves. My expression darkened instantly. I was furious. What I said just now was simply the truth. What right did Marcus have to point fingers at me? Yet this was what Elena chose to say. She had to know what her words implied. They implied that I, Daniel, was shameless, pestering her endlessly. Good for you, Elena. Just to vent for Marcus, you trampled my dignity right under your feet. Our two families were so close. I never thought Elena would refuse to leave me even a shred of face. Facing the pointing and whispering of the onlookers, I felt unbearably humiliated. Yes, at that time, I did like Elena. Everyone in the compound knew it. But after being reborn, I had already kept my distance. I asked myself, I never did anything to wrong them. What right did they have to make trouble for me? Even if I still remembered the affection I once had for her, I was truly angry. Commander Liu, I need you to understand something too, I said, my voice cold. I chased after you before because we lived in the same compound. I merely treated you as a younger sister. Since you feel I've become a burden, don't worry. From now on, you are you, I am me. We'll just be strangers. You're getting married. I'll sincerely wish you both a lifetime of happiness. Also, you too, please stop coming to me to seek a sense of presence. Hearing my words, Elena froze for a moment. She had always known I liked her. She didn't reject me, perhaps because our families were close, or maybe because she had some faint affection for me. Maybe she felt her past life with me wasn't as fulfilling as she had hoped, which led to her regrets. In this life, judging from her resolute attitude, I knew she would never repeat her mistakes. Hearing such cold words from me, Elena inexplicably felt uncomfortable, but she quickly suppressed it. This was what she had wanted in the first place. She would not allow any more regrets. She looked at me and spoke again. If we've bothered you, we apologize. You know my mother recently misunderstood Marcus because of some rumors. Her attitude hasn't been very good. I didn't speak, quietly waiting for her to continue. I know this might not be your intention, Elena took a deep breath, but could you please find a chance to make things clear to my mother? Ask her to stop pairing you and me together. This has caused Marcus a lot of pressure and distress. Seeing the crease in her brow, seeing her worry for another man, I suddenly found it absurd. Not only was she standing up for Marcus, she was even dumping the blame on me for his sake. Between the lines, she was implying that I had said something to Mrs. Liu, causing her to dislike Marcus. In her mind, the fact that Mrs. Liu liked me was also my fault. My mere existence as Daniel was the original sin that caused Marcus distress. So this was how far she could go to protect someone. I truly wanted to tell her that I too had been reborn. In our past life, I spent my entire life giving everything to her. This life, I no longer intended to give nor to be entangled with her again. But in the end, I swallowed my words. I only nodded and said, "All right, I understand." Elena seemed relieved yet also somewhat guilty and added, "Thank you. And everything from before is in the past now. We should both live new lives." Yes, it's all in the past, I repeated her words. Commander Liu, Dr. Marcus, is there anything else? If not, I still have patience to see. Seeing the distance in my attitude, Elena opened her mouth slightly but said nothing. Leaning on her crutch, she turned and left with Marcus. Watching her slightly limping back, overlapping with the bold figure she once had in my previous life, I let out a small laugh. Elena, once you make a move, there's no taking it back. Look forward. Don't ever regret it. I am a man who keeps his word. Since I had agreed, I chose a time and deliberately made a trip to the Liu residence. When Mrs. Liu saw me, she was overjoyed. Daniel, come in quickly. I just finished making some soup. Shall I get you a bowl? Auntie Liu, please don't trouble yourself, I stopped her, my tone solemn. I came today because there's something I want to make clear to you. Seeing my serious expression, Mrs. Liu seemed to sense something, and the smile on her face faded slightly. What is it, Daniel? Why so serious? I met Mrs. Liu's eyes directly, my tone clear and resolute. Auntie, I know you've always liked me and treated me as if I were your own son. And I've always respected you very much as well. But regarding Elena and me, I think you might have misunderstood something. Mrs. Liu pressed her lips together, not saying a word. Elena and I grew up together, and I treasure that friendship deeply. But my feelings toward her have always been those of an older brother toward a younger sister, nothing more. I spoke each word with exceptional clarity. No such feelings before, none now, and there will never be any in the future. Mrs. Liu finally couldn't hold back. But Daniel, before you clearly. I smiled and interrupted her gently. That was back when I was young and didn't understand things. Now that Elena has found someone she truly cares about, I'm genuinely happy for her. Dr. Marcus is a good man. They're a well-matched pair. I leaned forward and held Mrs. Liu's hand. Auntie, please don't try to pair Elena and me together anymore. It's unfair to Dr. Marcus, and for me, it's a burden as well. Mrs. Liu froze for a moment, her expression shifting from surprise to disappointment, finally melting into a long sigh. Daniel, are you speaking from your heart? I nodded. Absolutely. Auntie Liu, you will always be a respected elder to me, and I'm grateful for your kindness. But matters of the heart cannot be forced. I want Elena to be happy, and clearly her happiness lies with Dr. Marcus. Mrs. Liu was silent for a long time before slowly speaking. I understand. It was my fault for thinking too far ahead. But don't become distant from me because of them. When I stepped out of the Liu home, I felt completely at ease. The sky was bright blue, filled with warm sunlight. I had finally cut off the last unnecessary thread with my own hands. After that frank conversation, although Mrs. Liu was disappointed, she no longer deliberately tried to tie Elena and me together as she used to. But the interactions between our two families gradually became less frequent. Time passed quickly. Half a year went by in the blink of an eye. During this period, I threw myself completely into my work. My medical skills improved rapidly, and I published several research papers that gained attention in the field. I was promoted to deputy chief physician, becoming one of the youngest doctors to hold that position in the military hospital. My parents were proud, and my father often said, Daniel, you've finally found your own path. Meanwhile, Elena and Marcus's relationship progressed smoothly. They got engaged, and their wedding was scheduled for the following spring. Occasionally, I would hear news about Elena from colleagues. She had returned to her unit and was training hard, preparing for an upcoming military women's competition. I wished her well from afar but never reached out. We had become exactly what I said we would be, strangers. Then came the day of the competition. As a member of the medical support team, I was stationed at the medical point with other staff, ready to handle any emergencies. When Elena's team entered the field, I couldn't help but glance over. Even after her injury, she still looked sharp and valiant. The competition progressed smoothly at first. Elena performed excellently, her stamina and technical skills clearly displaying her solid foundation. In the spectator stands, Marcus watched nervously, his eyes full of pride. However, when the competition reached the obstacle course requiring high-intensity load-bearing and fierce movements, an accident happened. After leaping over a high barrier and landing, Elena's expression suddenly changed. Her movements noticeably slowed and deformed. She tried to force herself to continue, but when she attempted the low crawl under the net, which required tremendous core strength and leg power, the moment she bent down, a muffled cry of pain escaped her lips. Her entire body curled involuntarily, and cold sweat instantly spread across her forehead. Acting on professional instinct, I grabbed the emergency kit and rushed over. Her old injury has relapsed. She needs immediate transport to the hospital, I made a calm assessment and assisted the other medical staff in lifting her onto the stretcher. The spectators erupted in shock. No one had expected that the strongest contender would fall during the competition. Standing at the medical point, I watched the stretcher being carried away, my gaze steady. In my previous life, after Elena was injured, it was through my family's secret methods and careful treatment that she recovered in a short time, stronger than before. But in this life, the ointment I offered was rejected, and my follow-up examinations and suggestions were ignored. Perhaps this is fate. Everyone must bear the consequences of their own choices. The news of Elena's failure and the relapse of her old injury quickly spread throughout the military district. After a detailed examination at the hospital, the conclusion was not optimistic. Her previous injury had never fully healed, and the extreme load of the competition had caused irreversible damage. The doctor's diagnosis was that she was no longer suitable to remain in high-intensity, high-risk combat units. For the Liu family, this news was undoubtedly a heavy blow. That evening, as soon as I got home, my parents called me into the living room. On the sofa sat Mrs. Liu and Mr. Liu, their faces clouded with worry. My father spoke first. "Daniel, your Uncle Liu and Auntie Liu came because they want us to help. And your medical skills now far surpass mine." Mrs. Liu immediately grabbed my hand, tears welling before she even spoke. "Daniel, I know in the past Elena did some things wrong, but this time, you must help her. She can't leave the army. That is her life." Mr. Liu's face was also heavy. "We heard that your family's ancestral medical techniques might still have a way. Could you take another look at Elena? Even if there's only a sliver of hope, we don't want to give up." Everyone's eyes turned to me. I remained silent for a moment, then looked at them and slowly spoke. "Uncle Liu, Auntie Liu, Dad, Mom, it's not that I don't want to help. It's just that Commander Liu's injury has missed the best treatment window. I'm not confident I can cure her." At the title, Commander Liu, everyone in the room froze. Mrs. Liu's lips trembled slightly. "Daniel, I know Elena hurt you before, but this concerns her entire future. Please, I'm begging you." Mr. Liu also spoke in a low voice. "If you're willing to help, our Liu family will be forever grateful." I shook my head gently. "It's not about gratitude. The problem is that her injury truly has been delayed too long. Back then, I offered the ointment, but Commander Liu chose to trust Dr. Marcus's treatment plan. Now, half a year has passed, and the damage has become deeply embedded. Even if I tried my best, I couldn't guarantee results." My father frowned. "But you still have some confidence, don't you?" I met his gaze. "Less than 30%. The room fell into suffocating silence. After a long while, Mr. Liu spoke hoarsely. "Daniel, even if it's only 30%, we still want to try. Name your conditions. As long as it's within our capability, the Liu family will do everything to satisfy you." I took a deep breath and said slowly, "Uncle Liu, Auntie Liu, if you truly want me to treat her, I have 3 conditions." Everyone's eyes focused on me at once. First, Commander Liu must personally come to ask me. If she's unwilling, I won't force it. Mrs. Liu nodded immediately. "All right, I'll make sure she comes." Second, during the treatment period, she must follow all my instructions without question. If Dr. Marcus has any objections or interference, the treatment ends immediately. Mr. Liu hesitated for a moment, then nodded heavily. "Agreed." I paused, then spoke my final condition. Third, after the treatment, regardless of success or failure, the Liu family and I will be completely even. From then on, we'll simply be neighbors, nothing more. This condition made everyone freeze. Mrs. Liu's tears fell even harder. "Daniel, are you really going to sever ties with us completely?" My father also frowned. "Daniel, isn't that too harsh?" I maintained my calm expression. "This is my condition. If you can't accept it, I understand. But this is my bottom line." After what felt like an eternity, Mr. Liu finally spoke with difficulty. "All right. I agree." 2 days later, Elena came. She appeared at my clinic door alone, without Marcus by her side. When I looked up and saw her, I was momentarily stunned. In just half a year, she had lost a lot of weight. Her face, once full of life, now looked somewhat haggard. She stood at the door, silent for a long moment, before finally speaking. "Dr. Chen, I've come to ask for your help." Her voice was calm, but I could hear the suppressed bitterness within it. I gestured to the chair across from me. "Please sit, Commander Liu." She sat down slowly, her back still straight despite her injury. "I heard from my parents about your 3 conditions," Elena spoke first. "I agree to all of them." I nodded. "Then let's begin the examination." I stood up and walked over to her. "Please extend your hand." Elena hesitated for a moment, then slowly placed her wrist on the pulse pillow. The moment my fingers touched her skin, I felt her body stiffen slightly. After taking her pulse, I withdrew my hand, my expression grave. "Your condition is worse than I thought. The injury to your lumbar spine has affected the surrounding meridians. If not treated promptly, it will not only end your military career but may also leave you with lifelong pain." Elena's face paled, but she quickly composed herself. "Can it be cured?" I looked into her eyes. "I can only say I'll try my best. But you must understand that this treatment will be very painful, and the recovery period will be long. You need to be mentally prepared." She nodded firmly. "I'm not afraid of pain. As long as there's hope, I'm willing to try anything." The treatment officially began the next day. When I inserted the first needle into Elena's acupointment, I saw her bite her lip hard, cold sweat instantly covering her forehead. "If it hurts, you can cry out," I said calmly. "No one will laugh at you." She shook her head stubbornly. "I can endure it." The entire acupuncture session lasted 2 hours. By the end, Elena's clothes were soaked through with sweat. But she never made a sound from beginning to end. I had to admit, her willpower was truly remarkable. Over the following days, this scene repeated itself. Elena came on time for each treatment, endured the piercing pain of the needles without complaint, and left quietly after each session. We rarely spoke, maintaining a professional doctor-patient relationship. Sometimes, through the treatment room window, I would see Marcus waiting outside. He always wore a worried expression, pacing back and forth. But following my rules, he never entered the treatment room. A month passed, and Elena's condition began showing visible improvement. Her gait became steadier, and the pain visibly decreased. During one examination, I told her, "Your recovery is progressing better than expected. If you continue with this pace, you should be able to return to light training in 3 months." Elena's eyes lit up with undisguised joy. "Really? Does that mean I can stay in the military?" I nodded. "If everything goes smoothly, yes." She suddenly stood up and bowed deeply to me. "Dr. Chen, thank you. Truly, thank you." I stepped aside to avoid her bow. "Commander Liu, please don't do this." As I said, this is just a transaction. The joy on her face dimmed slightly, but she quickly smiled again. Regardless, I'm still grateful. 3 months passed quickly. Elena's recovery exceeded all expectations. Not only could she walk normally, she could even perform some basic training movements. On the day of the final examination, I told her, "Commander Liu, your treatment is complete. You can return to your unit." Elena looked at me, her eyes carrying complex emotions. "So quickly? I thought it would take longer." "Your recovery ability is excellent, better than I anticipated," I said calmly. She hesitated for a moment before finally asking, "After this, will we really become just ordinary neighbors as you said?" I met her gaze. "Commander Liu, this was the agreement from the beginning. I think we should both keep our promises." She was silent for a long time before finally nodding. "All right. I understand." As she turned to leave, I suddenly called out to her. "Commander Liu." She stopped and looked back. "Yes. Take care of yourself. Don't injure yourself again," I said. She smiled, but tears glistened in her eyes. "I will. You take care too, Dr. Chen." Time continued to flow forward. After Elena recovered, she returned to her unit. I heard she performed outstandingly in training and received recognition from her superiors. Marcus remained by her side, and their relationship seemed stronger than ever. As for me, my career continued to flourish. I published more research, trained young doctors, and gained respect throughout the medical community. One winter evening, as snow fell softly on the compound, I stood at my window watching the familiar courtyard. My parents were preparing dinner, their laughter drifting through the house. My father's medical books lined the shelves, and beside them now sat my own published research. In this life, I had chosen myself. I had chosen my hands, my career, my dreams. And though my heart still ached faintly when I thought of Elena, I knew I had made the right choice. 2 lives, 2 chances, 2 different paths. In the first, I sacrificed everything for love and lived in someone else's shadow. In this one, I let go and found my own light. Perhaps that was the lesson, that sometimes the greatest act of love is knowing when to walk away, and the truest form of living is choosing yourself without regret. As I watched the snow fall, I smiled. This life was truly mine.